topic is inspiring the next generation of women in STEM. Really important topic for both of our speakers today. So we have Randi Zuckerberg, who is the founder and CEO of Zuckerberg Media. And we also have Vlada Latina, and she's the CEO and co-founder of ClassTag. So we'll get right into it with question number one. So to both of you, who inspired you to become a CEO in a technology-based industry? What have you learned from the challenges you've overcome and that can help girls get into STEM? So Randi, we'll go with you first.
Sure. Well, first of all, I mean, I'm just countlessly every day inspired by incredible women like Vlada, like you, Lindsay. It's, you know, that it definitely makes it much less lonely, because I have to say it is still a bit of a lonely world to be a female CEO, especially in STEM and certain industries. I have to be honest, I never actually set out thinking in my life I'm going to be a CEO, but somewhere along the line, I realized that when you call the shots, even your worst day working for yourself is better than your best day working for somebody else. And it's been just so exciting. I really hope that more women step up and take that ownership in their career.
Absolutely. I would echo that. I don't think that growing up you think about sort of, working for yourself or, working for someone else, at least at the time, I guess, when we were growing up, it was, entrepreneurship perhaps wasn't like a big trend back then. And I think for me, it sort of all shifted once I became a mom. I think that I started appreciating my time much more and thinking about, do I really care about, this presentation I'm about to do or this next meeting or because that means I will not be with my daughter at the time, right? And so I think that just put a lot more sort of value on sort of where I spend my time. And I was certainly inspired to to be the example and to spend my time on things that I really, really cared about, which is education.
It's such a great point, Vlada. And so many of the best female CEOs that I've met, they had a problem in their own life. And they figured, you know what, if this is a problem for me in my family, with my children in my life, it's probably a problem for millions of other women also. Typically, maybe those are things that wouldn't traditionally be funded by male VCs who don't understand what that pain point is. But there have been so many successful companies started by women like that.
I'm sure there will be many, many more. So the next question is for you, Randi. So based on your research, when young girls start moving away from STEM, how can we inspire them to stay and pursue that instead?
It's such a great question, Lindsay. And I have to say, I was shocked in my research to find that it is around 8 years old that we start losing girls in STEM. I thought it was much later. I thought that we had until high school, college to keep the girls interested, but no, it's somewhere between 3rd and 4th grade that girls start saying things like, oh, that's for boys, or I'm not good at math. So I think that's something that has really inspired me and driven a lot of my career now. I now do a lot of work in children's entertainment and media. I've worked on books. I've done pop-up restaurants that are run by robots. I think it's so important for anyone that has a young girl around that age in their life to make sure that we keep them inspired and engaged. Otherwise, we lose an entire generation of entrepreneurs who don't even know that they could be future entrepreneurs.
That's very true. I think we've all kind of heard or thought that it's not for me, and someone should have been there to say, hey, you should still do it. So that's so true. And so question 3 is for both of you. What are some ways that teachers, parents, role models can inspire girls who are the future of tech?
Well, I think that, here at ClassTag, we believe that sort of parents are partners in their kids' education. And certainly, I think from that perspective, what teachers do and what parents do should be exactly aligned, right? They all should be sort of driving the same agenda. And I think it really boils down to me to three things. I think the first is confidence. I think that knowing that you can be successful in whatever path you chose, and just really having this deep conviction that removes any sort of doubts and naysayers, and leaves them wondering how all of that is happening, I think is really critical. I think the second piece is really growth mindset, and we've been talking about it for years in education, and certainly that's something I think parents becoming increasingly aware of, right? And I recently heard about this really fun kind of expression from a founder of Spanx, who was saying that her dad was asking her, what did she fail at today? And if she didn't fail at something, it was not a good day. And I think that, having this mindset of, the only way you fail is when you don't try, right? And sort of really appreciating the effort and really, trying difficult things, right? Because if you don't try difficult things, you don't, generally fail at them. And then lastly, I think it's expectation. I think expectations are critical in having, a high bar for, or the same bar for girls and boys, and expecting them to do great things, I think is really important from both the educational system as well as the parents at home.
That's such a great answer. I don't even have that much more to add. The only thing that I'll say is that I think it's so important at that age to just make it fun, to make tech and STEM delightful. And that's really what I've learned over some of the initiatives we've done. One of our more successful initiatives, we did something called Sue's Tech Kitchen, where we took this dessert, a sweet shop, and we toured it around the country to places that rural areas of the country that don't have as great access to STEM. And the entire sweet shop was run by robots. So you could get s'mores made on a 3D printer. You could have a robot making pancakes for you. And there's just something when you make technology delightful and you give children that aha moment that, even if they don't have access to it, even if they're not learning it in school or the people around them aren't reinforcing that, at least they have such a warm, positive feeling that when they have the opportunity to come back to it in life, maybe they do. So that's what I think, I would encourage parents and educators to just find ways to make STEM fun. And there are so many ways to do that don't even involve computer screens. I know we are all on way too many computer screens these days. There are so many ways to bring STEM into your home in a fun way without a screen.
That's amazing. That sounds like a fun restaurant that I really want to go to. You might have to bring it back.
Yes.
So Vlada, question number 4 is for you. What advice would you give to a young, driven woman who's about to enter a new school year? What advice should they ignore?
Great question. Well, certainly this school year is the most bizarre school year. Kids have entered at least in, I guess, our lifetime. And I certainly think that, they just have to try to make the best of it. Becoming a leader of a small group, and sort of having, some, interest circle on various platforms, right, where they can really communicate, maybe pursuing some hobbies or things that really are unique to sort of to this year, and we really are mostly locked in our homes, and sort of embracing it. And I think in terms of what advice to ignore, I always like to ignore naysayers. And so if you want to try to do something, whether it's, selling slime online or whatever it is you want to do, just go for it, and don't pay attention to people that say it's not possible.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's a good thing to not think about the naysayers too much. So question number 5 is for both of you. If you could have a gigantic billboard with anything on it, getting a message out to millions and billions of young people, what would it say and why?
So there's a quote that has been inspiring me a lot recently. It's a Winston Churchill quote, so an older quote, but it says, "Never let a good crisis go to waste." Mm-hmm. And I don't want to downplay the fact that this is indeed a crisis time. There are so many people who've lost their jobs. There's so much devastation. I work a lot in the theater industry. I mean, talk about an industry that has been completely devastated, live theater. These are people who don't have safety nets and have not been in work for, will not be in work for over a year. But I do think that quote inspires me because I think Winston Churchill is correct in that in a moment of crisis, it forces you to innovate. It forces you to kind of break free from failure and just go for big, bold, crazy ideas because you have nothing to lose. And I think if more times in our life we acted that way, if we always went through life with putting our biggest ideas out there as if we had nothing to lose, our businesses would be so much better and our lives would be so much better.
Yeah, that's great. I think reflecting my own experience, whatever that it is for you that makes you excited, that makes your work feel enjoyable and feels like you are really spending your time in the most valuable way, just make it happen. Don't let anything stop you.
I love that.
It sounds like some big billboards that we have to build next.
Yeah, I feel pumped already.
Yeah, right? We'll hit up Times Square right after this. So question number 6 is for both of you. There are some reports that have come out recently citing that we're in a female recession. Many women are giving up careers and time at work to ensure their kids get support during remote learning. What advice can you give mothers and teachers to continue inspiring girls in STEM? And what practical advice can you give women trying to balance their work and home life? Vlada, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm happy to. We recently did research on sort of parent engagement and how what's happening with remote learning is affecting families. And not surprisingly, we found that what's happening had a pretty drastic impact across the board. Women reducing their working hours and certainly level of stress going up. And lastly, I would say that really finding ways to have fun together, right? And I think one of the interesting insights that came from some of the research we've done is that teachers are saying that some kids actually flourish more in remote environment than in a classroom because they have more opportunity for independent work and self-expression. And so I think that parents and teachers should encourage more of that self-expression in STEM and arts and entrepreneurship and various other places where some kids who are perhaps more timid in a classroom or maybe less social can actually get ahead in this weird time.
I think that's such a great answer, Vlada. And I also want to thank you and the incredible work that you're doing at ClassTag for just making parents and teachers' lives so much easier in this difficult time because it's so stressful. I mean, speaking from personal experience, I have 3 children, 1, 6, and 9. I'm in a lucky position. I have a loving spouse. I live with my parents right now. So there's 4 adults in the house. And even with that, I have had to dial my own career way back with 3 children at home. It's almost impossible for a kindergartner to do remote learning on their own without an adult sitting next to them all day. Even, my poor 9-year-old, he never even used a computer until March of this year. And now, has been forced to learn kind of the ins and outs of all kinds of software and programming and to really do it on his own because I'm with the baby or I'm sitting with his brother. So my heart really goes out to, I think the stat says that almost 1 million women dropped out of the workforce in September alone of this year. And my heart goes out to them, and I understand why. I think the problem is that, you know, we might not notice this immediately in the workforce, but surely in a few years from now, we're going to notice this in a major way when there's fewer women rising in the ranks of leadership. So I think if, you know, for anyone out there who's listening who employs women, first of all, anything you could do to check in with them, to make sure, you know, to be there, to have a little more empathy about the situations of working moms right now. But I've also been hearing of a new trend of companies offering a returnship instead of an internship. It's, you know, for women who've had to drop out of the workforce during this difficult time and want to return. The last thing I would recommend is that if you're going to drop out of the workforce, try to do one little thing to keep your foot in the door. Maybe that is you have a podcast that you still talk about your industry, or you have a newsletter, or you have something. Don't just go cold turkey out of the workforce. Do something to keep your foot in the door so that you have the opportunity to go back in.
Yeah, that's a great tip. And then the last question kind of goes with the same theme here. But what is one tip, if you could only give one thing that you think helped you stay in STEM, but that could help someone else? Randy, do you want to go first?
Sure. Without a doubt, for me, it's been my peer network. There were so many years that I felt very lonely as a woman in STEM, the only woman in rooms, the only woman at conferences. And if it were not for that strong peer network that I built of women who were in that same boat at other tech companies or other industries, I don't think that I would still be in the industry today. So I would really recommend to anyone who's out there to really invest in networking, and especially your peer group.
Yeah, that's really funny, because I was about to say something very along the same lines. But yeah, I think it's all about community. It's all about, you know, really feeling that there is this majority, even if it's in a minority place, right? That there are all of these strong women doing amazing things. I also related to that, I think my advice would be to pay it forward. I think each of us has a lot to offer to each other. And, you know, it can be words of encouragement. It can be, I don't know, you're reviewing someone's pitch deck. It could be, you know, maybe making an introduction, or, you know, some sort of small thing that can take you 5 minutes, but can actually set someone on a completely different new direction. And I think we all, regardless of sort of where we are in our journeys, we all have a lot to offer to each other. And I think just having that mindset of how can I help you and how can I be of service, I think is really important. And I think that's how we grow more girls and women in STEM, and become a kind of a stronger community.
Love it.
That's amazing. Yeah. And maybe people, as they're watching this, get inspired and drop some comments below and mention, you know, what they want to do and aspire to create. And maybe you'll find someone, maybe you'll find your co-founder. Who knows? Anything is possible if you network a little bit. So thank you both, Randy Zuckerberg and Vlada Lotkina. It was great to talk to you both today. And we hope that we were able to inspire a lot of you out there. And this will also be available on our YouTube. We'll be sharing all about what the Zuckerberg Institute is up to. Also sign up for a newsletter. We'll be sending out some more information there. So we will see you all across social media. And thank you again so much, ladies.
Thank you.